listening to the 14th Source for all geeky and nerdy news and discussion, which means that you're listening to a podcast.
For all intents and purposes.
I am D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And we are your two overeducated, codependent nerd hosts, bringing you the things that we like to talk about, but filtered through inquisitive and critical lenses. In the episode for Friday, May 17th, 2024.
Big news this week. Whatever the hell company makes Dead by Daylight announced they have a roadmap for the future. So Dead by Daylight is this asymmetric multiplayer game where there's a killer and there's 4 survivors and you're trying to. Right. It's a neat, actually every time I play it, I'm reminded that actually this is kind of a novel game. But they announced a new, and they're also, Dead by Daylight, after it came out, got really big with licensing, right? They had, I think they first featured like a Stranger Things thing. They did.
Oh, this game, right,
they've done like every horror movie, right? There's Halloween shit. There's Freddy stuff, Nightmare on Elm Street stuff. There's other weird, crossovers. Anyway, apparently they announced a new one. The one that's coming out is... It stars a new villain, Vecna. Vecna from Dungeons and Dragons. And it's part of it's because there's actually a Vecna adventure coming out this week. And I just want to complain. Who the fuck cares about Vecna, man? Like, now I say that, and actually I went onto a Discord and I asked that question. I was like, who gives a shit about Vecna? And someone said like, Critical Role. I didn't realize that the villain for Critical Role Season 1 was Vecna.
Well, that was also the name of the villain in the most recent season of Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah, but that's at this point, Stranger Things is just a marketing, like they're just literally, I imagine WotC paid them a lot of money to say Vecna repeatedly.
I think I accidentally just said old Nudes, too, but we'll skip over that.
But yeah, no, it's so that the reason I'm complaining is because originally all this was in one book there was a reference to a hand and an eye of Vecna being powerful artifacts, and then like 10 years later they released an adventure, a single adventure that featured Vecna as the villain, and then they released 2 more about 10 years after that, and that's the extent of Vecna and his impact, other than Critical Role and then Stranger Things. It's just weird because to me, D&D doesn't have a lot of iconic, it's not like there's because it is kind of, everyone does their own thing and there's lots of different settings. So there is no real iconic, this is a D&D thing. There are names, but they're just names, right? So for me, it's weird that man, they're going all in on Vecna.
The name has cachet now. So
it does.
Good for them. You know what? I guess, I know it's kind of a source. It's like a weird sore spot, not really, because I fell on my side. No, but I feel like they didn't do as much stuff like this surrounding or in the wake of the Dungeons and Dragons movie, Honor Among Thieves. Partly because obviously, I guess the movie was a flop technically, but culturally, I think it did rather well. People that saw it really liked it. And it seems to have a pretty long tail culturally, at least on the internet. I say culturally. What I mean is the internet. So what a way to turn around popular opinion, but to capitalize on that. But hey, Vecna it is, I guess. Good for them.
Who was not in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, for those right. Keeping track. That was actually villainous lich Zaz Tam, not villainous lich / demigod Vecna. And
I guess that's also the thing, is a lot of the things that were featured in the movie were already pretty popular within the Dungeons and Dragons crowd, from what I understand. So,
or at least, some of it. Even I actually could relate to some of the stuff in the movie. But anyway, I just want to complain.
Well, thank you.
Because it just feels...
I'm sorry?
Because it's also a multiverse. The D&D, the big product that's coming out this week, not the Dead by Daylight, also features multiversal travel and heroes from across the D&D multiverse. And part of me is like, the D&D what?
Right? Wait, what?
It almost feels like someone's trying to hype me on the Marvel Cinematic Universe with no actual cinematic universe, right? They're like, man, we're gonna have a movie with Captain Pants, and you're like, who's Captain Pants? It's the best hero of the MC of the whatever D&D CU,
right? when I think of video games and PvP or like asymmetrical survival games, I think of like, when he's talking about multiverse, I'm like, oh, okay, so General Hawk is going to be in there with Barney the purple dinosaur, right? and Mega Man's there for some reason.
Yeah, and then Vecna fights Mega Man.
At which point we're just talking about Fortnite, so.
Right, and it's maybe this is just that this is the thing everyone's doing now. So like D&D's like Wizards of the Coast is like we're on this hype train,
right?
Because they've spun Magic the Gathering into D&D, and so now they're just they're taking that blender to top speed, and a viscous paste will come out. But anyway, that's just my little rant for the week. But hey, we are going to talk about Fallout. No, I'm kidding. Another week of Fallout.
Another week of Fallout, which we could do. We could do that.
No, we couldn't. We're going to do a little quick talk about, we don't want to say too much, but this new show came out this last week.
A new Disney Plus show. Yeah.
New Disney Plus show. It's called Doctor Who, I think.
That's a weird name for a show.
That's a weird name for a show.
Why make it a question?
So two questions, 2 episodes of this show, Doctor Who. So this is like there's no season number anymore. It's just the Shooty-Gatwa season. Like we're gonna stop because there's multiple ways to count Doctor Who. We're just gonna go. It's the Shooty-Gatwa.
Just like the number of which Doctor we're on is irrelevant at this point.
It's like we're on like 14 or 15. I don't even know.
Series. Well, and then with the whole, the
seasons versus series versus
and then in continuity, how the Doctor is apparently immortal anyway and has unlimited regenerations and has had who knows how many regenerations before Doctor Number 1. So it's season/series infinity, and it's the first 2, I guess, full episodes starring Doctor Number Infinity, Shooty-Gatwa.
Right. And it's I would say I think the consensus I've seen of like the 3 people on the internet who I saw comment on it is that it's people are enjoying it. I think right.
They are fun.
It's fun. It's a little zany, a little different. I mean, I don't want to. We're not going to go into great spoilers or anything. I just want to say I don't know how I feel about CGIing babies to talk or whatever. Right? Like it's like
it was a shock when it first happened.
It's like, oh, so you guys were really enamored with that weird commercial series from like 5 years ago where they made a baby talk like an adult.
So that's one of the interesting things here. So they released 2 episodes. I guess technically they're calling the. Oh gosh, what's the name of the Christmas episode? Something Ruby Rose Street Church.
Right.
God. Yeah. Depending on how you're looking, I think on Disney Plus they say that's episode 1, but it's also the Christmas special. So I don't know. But the thing I wondered was, they dropped 2 episodes, which has never really been done in the history of Doctor Who. But so my first question was like, well, why did they do this? And the first instinct was, well, this has got Disney Plus money, and they do that a lot, of dropping multiple episodes at once. But I was also thinking this: would the reception be as positive if they had just dropped the episode? Let me look at the episode titles here real quick. The first episode is titled "Space Babies,"
right?
And being this, they're both pretty goofy, but like, as you said, CGI babies. It's an interesting episode to officially start the season on. And so there's part of me going like, well, like it's fine, but like, let's just throw in this other one that also ties to the regeneration episode we recently had, the giggle, and kind of have the fun stretch across both episodes, but also have a little bit of continuity / lore going on. And I think actually releasing them together was a good idea, despite it breaking quote unquote tradition. But who cares about?
Right. Who cares?
If we have 2 episodes, release 2 episodes. I don't know if you thought about like these 2 episodes in that kind of context of like, and I don't know why it came to me. It was like, what if they had just released Space Babies? Would it be, how is it on its own as a season opener? And I'm like, it's fun, it's goofy, but I don't know how if it would make the best first impression.
Well, and that's right. That may be why they also tied in the Church on Ruby Road is also being kind of sold as the first episode, right? Because Space Babies is weird, right? This is I mean, it's literally about space babies, right? Babies in space.
Yeah, the Doctor constantly corrects himself. He's like calling them babies, and then says, "No, space babies."
Yeah, it's a weird, but I think maybe releasing these two episodes together, like if you watch just the Church on Ruby Road, you get the sense that maybe they're going to do something different with the show now. Mm-hmm. Space Babies and the Devil's Chord, which is the second episode, I think they hammer that home, right? They say, no, we are absolutely, this is going to be a bit different than, I mean, it's not like I say like different where it's actually like I'd say a little bit more magical, right?
Yeah.
And I think they even say that that was implied during the giggle, because I mean the giggle, the villain was literally a magical creature from another universe,
extra dimensional. Yeah.
So it's interesting that like,
dare I say, Lovecraftian.
And Space Babies, like it seems like it's not weird, but then it gets into like, oh no, there's kind of some weird like magic to it,
especially around the new companion, right?
What also but then also the like, at least in Space Babies, the creation of the villain, it has there's a certain amount of magic to it, and of course the Devil's Chord, starring Seattle superstar Jinx Monsoon. Mm-hmm. It was absolutely bizarre,
right?
Yeah, so no, it's a weird thing. So I think what they released the two together to just to get some hype, but also because it's those two episodes definitely set a tone. Like they're going to do the similar kind of stories, but there's going to be something a little bit different this time.
Mm-hmm. So was there anything that kind of stood out as being particularly different to you? I would say,
I'm sorry, the fact that there was a musical number,
another one. By the way.
Oh yeah, another one, right?
And well, and I was actually going to say, like, especially in the context of it being Russell T Davis's return, right? And how, like, were you keeping in mind like what we had before, and like what kind of quirks he had, and like we talked about this when we talked about the specials with Tennant and Catherine Tate, of like it started off as kind of the Donna apology tour that turned into the redheaded companion apology tour with Return of Mel, and the inclusion of like musical numbers, and of course the return of David Tennant as the same but very different in a lot of ways. Doctor. Did anything stand out to you with regard to that? Were you thinking about that? What I'm basically asking, what stood out to you most watching these two episodes, and did that tie into expectations or memories of what Russell T. Davis has done for the show previously?
I will say that to a certain extent, it felt there's a certain amount of it felt like the 2005 Doctor Who season.
Oh yeah,
right. Like the first season. Like there are some weird things where watching it, I think we were saying, like, oh man, this does kind of like, there's a similar feeling to that first Doctor and Rose. In kind of what they did, right? There's a historical, there's a far future episode,
right.
There's a albeit different, right? But like there's and it may just be that Russell T's like, look, I got a formula, it worked really well. Let's try it again.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. That's the other thing that kind of nailed home that Space Babies is more of a second episode, because it did remind me a lot of. What was the name of the End of the World? Was it?
Yeah, or because the second season had a similar structure too, where they did a far future and then they did a back in the past.
Right, and then they in episode 2 of series 1, the Doctor and Rose are on a spaceship overlooking Earth, as is about to, right before it dies, but overlooking a planet. And she's like, oh, my mom's dead. He's like, no worries, boop, 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 fixed your phone. And he does the exact same thing in episode 2 of this season. I'm like, oh, okay.
And actually, maybe that was the moment where like, God, there's not that that's in itself definitive, but it did have that similar feeling. And then like, oh, let me call. Oh, you just left yesterday,
Yeah. Like 10 minutes ago, I think even. Yeah. It was interesting, and and did create a sense of familiarity despite having a very, I think, like you were talking about a little bit or hinting at, the tone is is different. Not in a good way, a bad way. It's just it's 20 years 20 years later, new actors and all that kind of stuff. And Russell T is obviously a different writer because he's older. But yeah, sorry. Anything else that kind of stood out to you?
No, I mean that's kind of the big thing. I will say not that I'm not a RuPaul's Drag Race fan, but I want to say that when I heard that Jinx Monsoon was going to be in an episode, I was like, I don't know what this is going to be. Like, I was like, what? Like, although she's actually has definitely, I mean, she's been doing a lot of acting. So she's not just a drag performer. She's, like, she has a range. And I will say that I actually was suitably impressed with.
I found it incredible,
with her. Like, just this idea of this. And it's exactly like the joke is, I was thinking about this. It has big Ursula from The Little Mermaid energy, which the joke being that character was based on a drag performer, right? I forget So like it's this kind of recursive thing, but it works, right?
I remember I liked how they tied it into the lore, or unless I heard incorrectly. You have the subtitles on probably. What did they say that this character is the child of the toy maker?
Yes, yeah.
Which is because that answered my question, because I did ask that question audibly, saying, like, I wonder why they chose an American actor or a character, because I didn't know she was necessarily American. I'm like, why give this character an American accent? I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Her father, the extra dimensional being, is also American.
Right. Well, his one form was, right? His original form was apparently very British.
Yeah, pretending to be Asian.
Yeah, it's the same British guy pretending to be kind of Asian. But anyway,
don't worry about it.
Luckily, the episode's lost the time. But no, so I think it's a weird thing. Like, and there's definitely a lot of the trappings of what Russell T liked to do, where he's got a thing that's going to go over a season, because that's like he loves that, right? He loves giving you stuff leading into something. And so they've thrown a bunch of stuff out. We know there's a mystery behind our companion, Ruby Sunday. Mm-hmm. We know there's weirdness about, I mean, the Doctor drops the Pantheon. Like, oh, what's that? Right. So, and that kind of stuff, like, obviously that's also been done poorly, but I think of all the writers, this was the one of all the showrunners, it was RTD that actually handled this the best. I'm not saying they were great, but like I feel like Moffat, I think he just kind of like was trying to do it and realized he didn't give a shit most of the time. And Chibnall actually for the first season, it's like, I'm not doing that shit actually.
Right.
So no, I think it's to me it's only 8 episodes, so we're actually a quarter of the way through.
Oh Jesus Christ, really?
And I'm kind of excited to see where it goes. You know, like it'll a couple of weeks and it'll be I'm interested. And okay. Wait a second. Sorry, I have the wiki up, and apparently, Jinx Monsoon did say that she looked particularly to Michelle Gomez's portrayal of Missy as inspiration.
Very good.
Anyway,
that's pretty good.
I just want to throw that out there. Again, I want to say if nothing else of the first 2 episodes, Ncuti Gatwa's costumes. Just it's great. They're just putting them in different shit every episode.
You didn't even have to add the qualifier of costume. Like Ncuti Gatwa's just been great. He's been everything.
We want,
right?
He's great. But I actually I know there's this tendency to kind of get used to the Doctor having a costume, right? Or 2 or 3 costumes, right? Mm-hmm. And the fact that so far he's 3 episodes in, and it's like he's wearing different stuff all the time, and period dress, right? Like he dressed up for the 60s, and it was like, damn, right? Like, yeah, you go, Doctor,
right?
So yeah, I think it's been a really interesting 2 episodes. I like where they're going.
Did you have a preference for one episode over the other, just as a story?
They're both different. Like, yeah, I thought I liked them both. I mean, the Devil's Chord is weird, but it's like it's intended to be weird, right? Whereas I think Space Babies is weird, but it's more weird in line with the kind of stuff you could see Doctor Who doing.
It is a bit more, quote unquote traditional Doctor Who in some ways, yeah.
It's weird because you got Space Babies, but that's not That's not that far off from what maybe they would have done. Whereas, yeah, I would say the Devil's Chord was, I think you're the one that texted saying it's clear that RTD is just trying to get a Grammy now or something or whatever, like a BAFTA for music. I don't know what the hell they're
right. When that, I mean,
is there a British EGOT? Is that like, I don't know.
Something, yeah. That musical number in the Devil's Chord felt a bit like, I was like, were they short on time? Like, did they need to fill some space? It came out of nowhere, whereas it felt a bit more diegetic in the Church on Ruby Road. I was just like, okay, we're doing okay. Like, it was fun, but
it did feel like they just wanted to staple a musical number at the end of the episode.
Right. Which was like, okay, RT, like RTD, we get it. You really want to know? Let people know you make music now. Call Joss Whedon, or don't actually.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. The thing that I'm coming away from these 2 episodes feeling the most is that they're fun. I like the actors a lot. But there's something that the word that kept coming to mind is that it all felt really manic. Like, it felt like they had no time to breathe. And like, this talking is going real fast and there's no downtime. It just felt like it was just going forward all the time. And to the point where it's just like the pacing felt weird. Not bad, not good. Maybe it's just me, it's teaching me how to watch this new era of Doctor Who, and maybe I'll get on board. Maybe I don't. It's not good or bad if I do or don't, because I'll watch it anyway. But it's just like they're kind of just always going forward, always kind of like just loud and just stuff's always happening, and. I wonder if they can keep that up for 8 straight episodes, if that's kind of the tone or vibe that they want this new era to have. I don't know. I trust Russell T Davies to make a good show, because it's kind of his job, and he's been real good at it so far with everything he's done. So I'm excited. I'm still really excited for what happens next. And I know that the follow-up season has been greenlit. They're getting another companion on board, so things are moving forward fast behind the scenes as well.
Well, and I think having Disney on board with it, and they're clearly they're moving fast to make the series, but it's also it's only 8 episodes, right? Yeah. Which is, I think it's down. It used to be like 10 or 12. And that's fine. I don't like. I honestly, I think we both say as we get older, shorter seasons, but more of them is probably our preference.
Right.
Yeah. I will also comment, I didn't think about this, that no Beatles songs were featured during this episode.
Oh, of course not, yeah. In fact, they were
they're probably too expensive, right?
They bring the Beatles on to go like, we hate making music. Music's bad. That's a good workaround there, my friend. So far, a pretty stellar start for the new era of Doctor Who. And the next episode is the Stephen Moffat written episode. Like, that's all right. I don't know why I'm surprised, but it has to go somewhere in the season, because it was announced that he's writing an episode. It looks, again, especially with the caveat, the observation I made about the first 2 episodes about being manic and busy and loud, with the preview, and we won't go into it because if you don't want any sort of information, we won't have to spoil that. But the preview did indicate that, maybe this one's going to be a bit more of I'm not going to say a bottle episode, but definitely more of an introspective one, a more perhaps even quote unquote serious one. But who knows? Especially with Stephen Moffat, he might go before the first quote unquote commercial break, it's one way, and then we come back from it and they're on vacation in Aruba. I don't know. Who needs continuity when it's Stephen Moffat? Well, and it's
actually, he's going to reintroduce the Weeping Angels, and they're going to do something completely different from the last time they were in it.
Right. Actually, I think I've said this every time we've talked about Doctor Who since the specials. I'm really surprised at how much RTD is leaning into the Timeless Child lore that Chibnall introduced. Of he's really into that idea, which I think is interesting, because I think when it aired originally, it was controversial. but I like that he sees a real opportunity in it. And, say what you will about the Chibnall years, the fact that he kind of said that, and he kind of broke open the doors of like, hey, headcanon is canon as far as the Doctor's concerned, because as far as we know, there are infinite number, like we said at the beginning of the show, infinite numbers of Doctor right. out there. And that seemed to really tickle the imagination of Russell T Davies. And I'm just really surprised how much he keeps bringing that up, of the Doctor being an orphan, the Doctor being different. It's, of all the stuff that's happened since he left his first tenure, that's the thing he seems to me bringing up the most.
Well, and I wonder if that's just his way to, right? So to just a real sidetrack here. If you think of something like I always joke that Star Wars Episode 7, 8, 9, where 8 and 9, each movie goes out of its way to basically disavow the previous movie. Whereas I think RTD, and actually I would say Stephen Moffat, in a certain way, does that when he takes over the show with Series 5, where he basically like reboots the universe and kind of disappears all the stuff that had been done. And Chibnall just kind of, well, he literally by the end of the run reboots the universe, but I think that this is a way of RTD saying, look, we're not giving up, we're not just gonna disappear that stuff, right? And maybe he's gonna go somewhere with it, right? Maybe we're gonna find out the Doctor's the son of the toy maker, no.
What if the Doctor is the toy maker and it's all being controlled by the Dream Lord?
Yeah,
remember that character?
We're gonna bring back Toby.
Toby.
Oh,
Toby. Not
Toby Keith.
Toby. Not Toby Whithouse. He's the director. No, he's a writer. Toby. I know he's in the wonderful show. The
Toby Jones.
Toby Jones. You can remember Toby, the most generic white guy last name. Toby Smith. No, fuck. Oh man. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who? No.
So who knows, right? But I think it's kind of a fun thing to see where we go, and it's another show that I'm enjoying right now. Having fun with it. It's kind of nice. It is a show that I was watching ended. Like I saw Fallout. I finished Fallout. It's. I know, but it shows kind of go that, oh, here's a new show. Because one thing I did say this today to a friend of mine, a coworker. I guess I'm just not paying attention to anything anymore. So now when like a new show comes out, it's like, oh, look, a new show. As opposed to like years ago when it'd be like, yeah, we're waiting for that new thing. I'm waiting for that new thing. Now it's like, oh, look, a Star Trek, oh, look, or whatever.
Right. And isn't it kind of nice now? Instead of being terminally like online.
It's kind of nice.
Just anticipating so you can have a hot take or judge it. It's pretty great. Just like, hey, this looks fun. I'm going to check it out. So if you, dear listeners, have any thoughts about the topics we discussed this week, feel free to leave your thoughts as comments on the page for this episode at forallintents.net.
You can also post your comments or engage in conversations with other listeners on our Facebook page.
You can find us on other social media as well, specifically the places that Andrew and I frequent, which means you can find me on Instagram at dbethelcomics, and you can find Andrew on Mastodon at profounddark@dice.camp.
While you're at our website at forallintents.net, you can also take a look at our YouTube page by clicking on the link in the corner that says YouTube. If you're there or you're listening to the show, feel free to like and subscribe, or as people like to say, ring the bell.
We use 2 tracks of music for our show. One is called Disco Medusae, the other is called District 4, both written and performed by Kevin McLeod, the Clan McLeod, immortal swordsman, graph paper enthusiast, and musician extraordinaire.
You can find his music at incompetech.filmmusic.io, and that's all licensed under the Creative Commons 4.0 attribution license.
If you'd like the show and like to help us out, the best way to do so would be to subscribe to the show using whichever podcasting service you happen to use. What would help us out even more, though, would be to leave some sort of review, whether a text review or using their proprietary metric helps spread the word to new potential listeners through the magic of algorithms. I like to do a little plug, if that's okay. Sometimes Andrew and I are called away to lend our expertise in other discussions. Tomorrow, as of this release, Saturday the 18th, I will be a guest on our On the Ground Marvel Correspondence podcast, Kyron Silva. I'll be a guest on his podcast called Four Tales, where they're getting a bunch of people on for a big panel discussion about this first season of X-Men 97. And so I'll be one of many voices discussing it, because that wrapped up this week as well. And we'll probably have an episode either next week, maybe a week after that. We'll see how much time we want to give it and how much editing we want to do, because we said we'd bring Kyron back on to talk about that show amongst the three of us. So if you want to check that out, check out the Four Tales podcast anywhere podcasts are sold for free. I know they have it on Apple Podcasts, or they have a channel on YouTube, and they get the stuff posted pretty quickly. So I'm excited to talk about it. It's been a very interesting show, and especially with what happened at the end of the penultimate episode, I'm really kind of excited / nervous about where they're going from here. But actually have full confidence in the writers behind the show, because they're nailing it. They're making really good X-Men stuff. Like, it's the best X-Men adapted content ever. So
I do appreciate they made a reference to the X-Men movie.
They did, finally.
With their costume commentary.
Yep. So until you have costume commentary, dear listeners, I'm D. Bethel.
And I'm Andrew Asplund.
And for all intents and purposes,
that was a podcast. Oh, I need to watch this video about Fallout 76 when we're done.
That's what I was doing when you said we're recording. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I should stop playing.
I just started it. I was like, I should check before I start, because then I'll get caught in some fucking thing.
You're listening to the 14th Source. Let me see if I'm recording. For all intents and you're listening to the 14th Source. For all geeky and nerd. I'm trying to run a business here, Andrew. I don't need you giggling in the background. Some people. I'll wait till you're done being bored.
Oof. Oh my god. Oh no.
Oh no. I'm going to call the ambulance. Andrew fell down.
No, I dropped my dice.
Oh, what? You were holding your dice?
No, they were on my desk. And
what do I say?
You're listening to the 14th Source.